The call came through at 2,147 hours. 3 days into what should have been a routine patrol rotation in Helmand Province, I was stripping down my M4 when Corporal Martinez handed me the encrypted phone. "Sir, it's your sister. Says it's urgent." Took the phone and walked outside the tent. The desert air was cold, stars bright overhead like scattered ammunition. "Lisa." "Danny, I need to tell you something." Her voice was tight, controlled. "Mom kicked you out of the house." I stopped walking. "What?" "Yesterday. She packed all your stuff, your medals, your photos, everything, and put it in storage. She changed the locks. She says ... She says you're not welcome home anymore." The words hit like incoming mortar fire. Sudden, precise, devastating. "Why?" "The promotion ceremony. The one you missed for your deployment." She said it was the final straw. Said you chose the army over family for the last time. I stared at the mountains in the distance, black shapes against the star field. "Lisa, I'm deployed." "I couldn't." "I know." I tried to explain. "But she's done, Danny. She said you made your choice when you re-enlisted instead of coming home. She said the army can take care of you now. 3 combat tours, 15 years of service, a Bronze Star with V device. And my mother thought I was a failure because I missed my nephew's high school graduation ceremony." "Her," he said, "you've been gone so long, you're not really part of the family anymore." He said it's time to stop pretending. I closed my eyes. The mountains were quiet. No incoming fire, no explosions, just the sound of my family disowning me over a satellite phone. "Danny, you there?" "Yeah, I'm sorry." I tried to change their minds, but they won't listen. They say they're done waiting for you to choose them over the army. I understand. You want me to know I'm good? I hung up and stood there for 10 minutes, holding the phone. Martinez came looking for me eventually. "Everything okay, Sergeant?" "Yeah, all good." I went back inside and finished cleaning my rifle. Business as usual. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my squad, not my platoon leader, not the chaplain, who made his rounds asking about home. I wrote my reports, ran my patrols, maintained my equipment. Standard operating procedure. But at night, lying in my rack, I'd stare at the ceiling and run through the timeline. I'd missed Tommy's birthday party because of Ranger School. I'd missed Christmas 3 years running because of deployments. I'd missed Dad's retirement party because of training rotations. Each absence had been necessary, mission critical. But they'd added up to something larger. Proof that I'd chosen the army over family. The thing was, I'd never seen it as a choice. The army was my career, my calling. My brothers in arms were family too. But try explaining that to a mother who'd spent 15 years waiting for her son to come home and be normal. I started volunteering for extra duties. Convoy security, perimeter checks, training new replacements, anything to stay busy. Anything. To avoid thinking about the fact that I had no home to go back to, my team leader, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, pulled me aside after I'd worked 21 straight days. "Thompson, you're burning out. What's going on?" "Nothing, Staff Sergeant. Just staying sharp." "Bullshit. You're running on empty. Talk to me." I looked at him, a good soldier, a good leader, someone who'd understand, but I couldn't find the words. "Fine," I said. Rodriguez studied my face. "You know what your problem is? You think staying busy will fix whatever's eating you? But some things you gotta face head on." I nodded and walked away, but I kept working, kept moving, kept pushing down the voice in my head that said maybe Mom was right. Maybe I had chosen wrong. The only time I almost broke was during mail call 2 weeks later. Everyone else got care packages, letters, photos of kids and girlfriends. I got nothing. For the first time in 15 years, I had no family writing to me. No one waiting for me to come home. No one who cared whether I made it through this deployment. I went to the latrine and sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the floor, not crying. Just ... empty. Then I got up, washed my hands, and went back to work. I grew up in Millbrook, Massachusetts. Population 8,400. Dad worked at the paper mill. Mom was a nurse at the local hospital. Middle class, stable, predictable. The kind of place where kids played Little League and families went to church on Sundays. The plan was simple. I'd graduate high school, go to state college, maybe study business or engineering. Come back, work at the mill or the hospital, marry a local girl, raise kids. It's the American dream, a small town edition, but I was 17 and restless. The whole town felt like a trap. When the Army recruiter came to school, I signed up the same day. Not because I wanted to serve my country, though I did. I just wanted to see what else was out there. Mom cried when I told her. Dad was quiet for 3 days. When he finally spoke, it was to ask when I was coming home. After my first enlistment, I said for years. But basic training changed me. The discipline, the purpose, the brotherhood, it all clicked. I was good at it, better than good. I found something I was born to do. For years became 8. 8 became 12. Then Staff Sergeant, I deployed to Iraq, then Afghanistan. I earned my Ranger tab, my airborne wings, my Bronze Star. Every time I came home on leave, the gap grew wider. High school friends had moved on, marriage, kids, careers. I'd moved on too, but in a different direction. I spoke a different language now. Acronyms and military time and stories they couldn't understand. Mom would ask the same questions. When was I getting out? When was I coming home for good? When was I going to start a real life? The Army is my real life, I'd tell her. No, it's not. It's just a job. A dangerous job that takes you away from people who love you. Dad would nod along. You're 32. Son, time to think about settling down. Starting a family. I have a family. My unit is my family. That's not the same thing, but it was, in ways they couldn't understand. The guys in my squad would die for me. I'd die for them. We'd been through combat together, shared foxholes and firefights, and the kind of fear that bonds men forever. Try explaining that, too. Parents who wanted grandchildren and Sunday dinners and a son who called every week. The breaking point came last Christmas. I was home for 2 weeks, the longest leave I'd taken in years. Mom had planned everything. Family dinners, visits with relatives, a surprise party for my 34th birthday. But I was different, distant. I'd just come back from a rough deployment, lost 2 good soldiers to an IED. I wasn't ready to pretend. Everything was normal. The party was awkward, relatives asking questions I couldn't answer, friends from high school treating me like a curiosity. Mom introducing me to every single woman in town, hoping one would convince me to stay. I left early and went to a bar downtown, sat by myself, drinking beer and watching ESPN. Mom found me there at midnight. This is what you choose, she said, sitting alone in a bar instead of being with family. I'm not good company right now, Mom. You're never good company anymore. You come home, but you're not really here. You're always somewhere else, always thinking about the Army. She wasn't wrong. I was thinking about my soldiers, about the mission, about getting back to Afghanistan. Home felt like a waiting room now, a place to kill time between deployments. Maybe I should just stop coming home, I said. Maybe you should. We stared at each other across the bar. 2 people who loved each other but couldn't find common ground anymore. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I'm not the son you wanted. She started. Crying then? I just want you to be safe. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a life. I do have a life. It's just not the one you imagined. That was the last real conversation we had. I went back to Afghanistan 2 days later and she stopped calling, stopped writing, stopped pretending we understood each other. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. The way she'd talk about my cousin Mike's new job or my sister's promotion, but never mention my awards or my deployments. The way she'd change the subject when neighbors asked about me. The way she'd look at me sometimes, like I was a stranger wearing her son's face. She was already writing me off. I just didn't want to admit it. After Lisa's call, I started making quiet preparations. Not dramatic moves, just careful planning for a future that had suddenly become uncertain. I called my old platoon sergeant, Frank Morrison, who'd retired 5 years earlier and was working as a defense contractor in Virginia. Frank, I need some advice. Hypothetically, if a guy had nowhere to go when he got out of the army, what would you recommend? Depends on the guy. You talking about yourself? You may be. Eventually, how long you got left? 5 years until retirement. But I might get out early. Why the hell would you do that? You're so close to 20. I explained the situation without showing my hand. Family problems, burned bridges, no support system at home. Danny, listen to me. Don't make any big decisions while you're deployed. Give it time. Families say stupid things when they're emotional. This feels permanent. Nothing's permanent. But your retirement pay is. Don't throw away 15 years of service because your mom's having a moment. He was right about the retirement pay. 20 years would give me a pension for life, but the thought of serving 5 more years without family support, without anyone caring whether I made it home, was crushing. I also called my sister Lisa, carefully probing for more information. How long has Mom been thinking about this? I asked. Honestly, since you re-enlisted the last time. She thought you were finally ready to come home, but then you signed up for another 6 years. She felt betrayed. I tried to explain, I know. But she doesn't understand why you'd choose the army over family. She thinks you're running away from responsibility. What responsibility? I'm serving my country. She thinks you're avoiding real life. Marriage, kids, a normal job. She says you're hiding behind the uniform. The conversation was painful but informative. Mom hadn't made this decision impulsively. She'd been building toward it for years, waiting for me to choose family over career. When I didn't, she'd chosen for me. I started researching my options. Early retirement was possible, but expensive. I'd lose thousands in pension benefits. Getting out completely would mean starting over at 34, with no career prospects and no family support. I opened a new savings account, started putting away every extra dollar. If I was going to make it on my own, I needed resources. I also started networking with other veterans who'd made successful transitions to civilian life. I joined online forums, attended virtual job fairs, researched companies that hired ex-military. The picture that emerged was daunting. The job market was tough. The skills I'd learned in the Army small unit tactics, weapons maintenance, leadership under fire, didn't translate directly to civilian careers. But I was good at planning, good at problem solving, good at adapting to new situations. Was going to be on my own. I'd make it work. The full scope of my family's betrayal became clear 3 months later, when I got an email from my cousin Mike that was supposed to be routine news. Hey Danny, just wanted to let you know your mom and dad are selling the house. They're moving to that retirement community in Florida. Figured you should know before you hear it from someone else. Stared at the email for a long time before. Calling Lisa? You're selling the house? Yeah, Mom says it's too big for just her and Dad. They want to downsize. When? Next month? They already have a buyer. Something cold settled in my stomach. Lisa, where are they putting my stuff? Silence on the other end. Lisa, they ... They got rid of it. They donated most of it to Goodwill. The military stuff, your medals and certificates, they put in storage. But everything else ... My childhood bedroom, my high school trophies, my photos, books, clothes, everything that proved I'd once been part of this family. They threw it away. They said you'd been gone so long, they didn't think you'd want it. They said you'd chosen the army over family, so you didn't need family things anymore. The betrayal was complete. It wasn't enough to kick me out. They'd erased me. Deleted 15 years of history, packed my entire childhood into garbage bags. Did you try to stop them? I tried. But they said it was their house, their decision. They said you'd made your choice. I hung up and sat there for an hour, staring. At the wall of my tent, my squad was outside cleaning weapons and telling jokes. Normal soldiers with normal families who cared about them, but I wasn't normal anymore. I was a ghost, haunting the edges of other people's lives. I called my old friend Jake Patterson, who'd gotten out of the Army 2 years earlier and was working as a police officer in North Carolina. Jake, I need to ask you something. If parents disown their kid, is there any legal recourse? What do you mean? I mean, if they kick you out, sell your stuff, cut off all contact, can you fight it? Fight what? If you're over 18, they don't owe you anything? Why? What happened? Told him everything. It's a phone call, the house sale, the disposal of my belongings. The systematic erasure of my existence. Jesus, Danny, that's cold. But it's not illegal. Shitty, but not illegal. What about my medals? My military stuff? If they put it in storage, you can probably get it back. But you'd have to pay the storage. Fees. And if I don't, eventually they'll auction it off. My Bronze Star, my Purple Heart, my Ranger tab. All of it destined for some stranger's garage sale unless I paid ransom for my own service record. There's something else, Jake said. Something that might be relevant. What? I heard through the grapevine that your dad's been telling people. You're not really his son anymore. That you're dead to the family. Where did you hear that? My mom still lives in Millbrook. She said your dad was at the VFW last week, drinking with some buddies. Someone asked about you and he said he only had one son now, meaning your cousin Mike. The words hit like a physical blow. Not only had they disowned me, they were actively telling the community I was dead to them. Jake, I need a favor. Can you find out what else he's been saying? Who he's been talking to? Yeah, I can ask around. But Danny, why put yourself through this? They've made their position clear. I need to know how deep this goes. The investigation took 2 weeks. Jake called back with a report that was worse than I'd imagined. Your dad's been bad-mouthing you. All over town. He's telling people you abandoned the family, that you're a selfish coward who hides behind the uniform. Been saying you're not a real soldier, just a guy who couldn't handle real responsibility. What? He told the guys at the VFW that you've never seen real combat, that your medals are participation trophies. He said the army keeps you overseas because you're incompetent. I closed my eyes. Not only had they erased me from the family, they were destroying my reputation in the community where I'd grown up. There's more, Jake said. Your mom's been telling people at the hospital that you're mentally unstable. The army broke. You made you violent and unpredictable. She's been saying she had to cut contact for her own safety. The lies were comprehensive and systematic. They hadn't just disowned me, they'd created a narrative that justified their actions and painted me as the villain. Why? I asked. Why would they do this? I think they're trying to convince themselves they made the right choice. If you're a bad person, then cutting you off was justified. But I'm not a bad person. I'm a good soldier. I've served my country with honor. I know that. But they need you to be the bad guy to make their story work. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. My family hadn't just abandoned me. It assassinated my character to justify their betrayal. I took emergency leave and flew back. To the States, not to Massachusetts, so I'd never set foot in that state again, but to North Carolina, where Jake lived and worked. I need your help, I told him over beers at a local bar. I want to set the record straight. What do you mean? I want people to know the truth about my service, about what really happened. Jake studied my face. You sure about this? Did you start fighting back? There's no going back. They started this fight. I'm just going to finish it. What do you want to do? I want to document everything. My service record, my deployments, my awards. I want proof that their lies are lies. That's easy enough. Your DA form, 2-to-1, will show everything. But what are you going to do with it? I'm going to send it to everyone they've been lying to. The VFW, the hospital, the neighbors. I'm going to let the truth speak for itself. Jake nodded slowly. I can help with that. But I think you should go bigger. What do you mean? Why settle for just correcting their lies? What? Why not show the world what real service looks like? He explained his idea. Instead of just defending myself, I should go on the offensive. Tell my story publicly. Show people what military service actually meant. You've got a Bronze Star with V device, he said. You've got 3 combat tours. You've got 15 years of honorable service. It's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. I'm not looking for glory. I'm not talking about glory. I'm talking about dignity. Your parents are trying to destroy your reputation. Don't just defend. It's celebrated. The idea was appealing, but risky. Going public with a family dispute could backfire. But staying silent meant letting their lies stand unchallenged. I spent the next week researching my options. I could write letters to the editor of the local paper. I could contact veterans, organizations. I could start a blog or a social media campaign, but Jake had a better idea. There's this organization, he said, Veterans for Truth. They help military families who've been mistreated by their communities. They've got lawyers, public relations people, media contacts. What do? They tell stories, real stories about real veterans. They fight back against the stereotypes and lies. Are they expensive? No charge. They're funded by donations from veterans who've been where you are. I contacted Veterans for Truth and explained my situation. They were interested. This is exactly the kind of story we need to tell, said their director, a retired Marine colonel named Sarah Mitchell, a decorated veteran abandoned by his family for choosing service over self-interest. It's powerful. I don't want to hurt my family. I just want to stop the lies. We're not in the business of hurting families. We're in the business of telling the truth. She explained their process. They'd research my background, verify my service record, document my parents' lies. Then they'd craft a media campaign designed to set the record straight. The goal isn't revenge, she said. It's justice. Earned the right to have your story told accurately. I agreed to work with them. Within a week, they'd assembled a comprehensive dossier on my military career. Combat citations, performance evaluations, letters of recommendation, the paper trail of a distinguished career. They also investigated my parents' claims. Every lie was documented, every exaggeration exposed. Your father's been telling people you're a desk jockey, Colonel Mitchell said, but your service record shows 3 combat deployments and a Bronze Star for valor. That's not a desk jockey. What's the plan? We're going to tell your story to the media, local newspapers, radio stations, maybe even national outlets. We're going to show people what real military service looks like. And my parents, they'll have to live with the consequences of their lies. The media campaign launched 3 months later, timed to coincide with Veterans Day. The local paper ran a front-page story. Local veteran abandoned by family for choosing service. The article was devastating in its simplicity. It laid out the facts, my service record, my awards, my deployments. Then it contrasted those facts with my parents' public statements about me. While Staff Sergeant Thompson was earning a Bronze Star for valor in Afghanistan, his parents were telling neighbors he was a coward who'd never seen combat. The story went viral. Within hours, it was picked up by regional news outlets, then national ones. Social media exploded with support from veterans and their families. The local VFW Post issued a statement apologizing for believing my father's lies. The hospital where my mother worked launched an investigation into her claims about my mental health. But the real breakthrough came when a reporter from CNN called. "We'd like to do a segment on your story," she said. "It's part of a series we're doing on veteran families and the challenges they face." The interview was scheduled for the following week. I flew to Atlanta and sat in the CNN studio, wearing my dress uniform, its medals gleaming under the lights. The anchor, a veteran herself, was sympathetic but professional. She asked about my service, my deployments, my awards. She asked about my family's reaction to my career choice. "It's hard," I said. "When you're serving your country, you hope your family will support you. When they don't, it's devastating. What would you say to other veterans who faced similar situations?" I'd say don't give up. Your service matters. Your sacrifice matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The segment aired 3 days later. Within hours, my phone was ringing. Reporters, veterans, advocates, families of other soldiers, all wanting to share their own stories of abandonment and betrayal. But the most important call came from an unexpected source. "Is this Staff Sergeant Thompson?" The voice was formal, official. "Yes." "This is Major General Patricia Hayes, Commanding General of the 82nd Airborne Division. I saw your story on CNN. I wanted to call personally to thank you for your service and to tell you that your Army family is proud of you." I almost dropped the phone. "Thank you, ma'am. I also wanted to let you know that we're nominating you for the Army Commendation Medal for your work training new soldiers. Your dedication to developing the next generation of warriors hasn't gone unnoticed." After I hung up, I sat in my hotel room and stared at the wall. My biological family had abandoned me, but my military family had embraced me. The contrast was stark and painful and somehow liberating. The story continued to spread. Within a week, it had been featured on Fox News, MSNBC, and dozens of local stations. Veterans groups across the country issued statements of support. My parents, meanwhile, went into hiding. They stopped answering their phones, stopped going to church, stopped showing their faces in public. The lies they'd told had been exposed, and the community that had once believed them was turning against them. I felt no satisfaction in their humiliation. It's just sadness that it had come to this. The vindication came 2 weeks later when the president gave a speech about veteran families at the White House. He mentioned my story specifically. Staff Sergeant Daniel Thompson represents the best of American military service, he said. Despite being abandoned by his own family, he continued to serve with honor and distinction. His dedication to training the next generation of soldiers embodies the values we should all aspire to. The speech was broadcast live on all major networks. Millions of Americans heard the President of the United States praise my service and condemn my family's treatment of me. I watched from my hotel room in Atlanta, alone but not lonely. The President of the United States had just validated my life's work in front of the entire nation. I flew back to Afghanistan to finish my deployment, but everything had changed. The story had made me something of a celebrity among the troops. Soldiers who'd never spoken to me before were stopping to shake my hand, to thank me for representing them. You showed them what we're really about, one young private told me. You showed them we're not all broken or crazy or whatever they think. We are. I appreciated the support, but I wasn't comfortable with the attention. I'd never wanted to be a symbol or a spokesman. I just wanted to serve my country and have my family respect that choice. But I'd learned something important from the experience. Sometimes you have to fight for your dignity. Sometimes you have to stand up and say, this is who I am, and I'm proud of it. I finished my deployment and returned to Fort Bragg. The media attention had died down, but the impact lingered. I'd received hundreds of letters from veterans and their families, sharing their own stories of abandonment and betrayal. I started a small nonprofit organization, Veterans Family Support, designed to help military families navigate the challenges of deployment and separation. It wasn't a big operation, just me and a few volunteers, but it filled a need. The work was rewarding. I counseled soldiers whose families didn't understand their commitment. I helped spouses cope with deployment stress, mediated disputes between veterans and their civilian relatives. Each case reminded me that my experience wasn't unique. Thousands of military families struggled with the same issues, competing loyalties, misunderstood commitments, love complicated by duty. I also started speaking at veterans events, sharing my story and encouraging others to value their service. The message was simple. You don't have to choose between family and country. But if your family forces you to choose the institution that values your sacrifice. 5 years later, I retired from the Army with full honors. 20 years of service, 3 combat deployments, a Bronze Star, and the respect of my peers. Not the life my parents had wanted for me, but the life I'd chosen. I used my retirement pay to buy a small farm in rural North Carolina. Nothing fancy, just a place where I could raise horses and help other veterans transition to civilian life. I never contacted my parents again. I heard through mutual friends that they'd stayed in Florida, living quietly in their retirement community. They'd never publicly acknowledged their lies or apologized for their treatment of me. I wasn't bitter. I'd learned that some relationships can't be repaired, and some people can't admit they were wrong. The best you can do is move forward with dignity and grace. The farm became a refuge for struggling veterans. I offered them work, counseling, and a place to heal. Some stayed for weeks, others for months. All of them left stronger than they'd arrived. One evening, I was sitting on the porch when a young soldier approached. He'd just finished his first deployment and was having trouble adjusting to civilian life. "Sergeant Thompson," he said. Wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us, for showing us it's okay to be proud of our service. I looked at him, 19 years old, wearing his uniform with pride, his whole life ahead of him. You don't need to thank me, I said. Take care of your brothers. That's what this is all about. He nodded and walked away. I sat there watching the sunset, thinking about the path that had brought me to this moment. My parents had called me a failure. They'd said I'd chosen the army over family. They'd been wrong about the first part, but maybe they were right about the second. I had chosen the army. I'd chosen service over self-interest, duty over comfort, honor over approval. It was the right choice. The president had said so on national television, but more importantly, I knew it in my heart. I was proud of my service, proud of my soldiers, proud of the life I'd built from the ashes of my family's betrayal. The farm was quiet now, peaceful. I had horses to feed, veterans to counsel, a life. To live, I had no regrets. My family had called me a failure and kicked me out. But when the president said my name on CNN, the whole world heard it. That was enough. That was everything.